How's it going, everyone? It's Ken and Brad from Pixelated Thoughts, and this is going to be a Final Fantasy XVI spoiler discussion. I finally completed the game. Brad has done it like a week or two ago, and he's been waiting for me because he's had notes. So, I think we should start with our gripes on the game. So, Brad, what do you got for me?
I'm just gonna start off and say that combat, very well done. Like I will be the first to say they did a really good job with it. However, obviously, not my preference in combat style.
Of course, it's not. You're a turn-based
So,
nerd.
well, okay, so it's really not even the turn based. It's okay. So I actually made a list. I made a list of things. All right, these are things that they removed from combat. From pretty much all of the Final Fantasies minus 15, because 15 was also active combat, but they still had party members. Anyways, all right, so they removed MP altogether, right? There's no MP, right? They kind of replaced it with cooldowns. There is no elemental typing, or weaknesses, or resistances, or like there's no consideration at all into any type of weakness or resistance. Or it's just you just hack away with whatever magic you want to use. Let's see. I really didn't like the
Oh my
way
god, there's
that,
actually a list. I thought you were lying to
yeah.
me.
No. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven things. Seven things. Let's see. I felt like the equipment was very generic.
Yeah,
There,
100%.
none of the equipment had any type of special typing to it. There's no.
True,
Keep looking at
true. I
myself.
really felt like the crafting in that was kind of weak as well. Like you just kind
Yeah.
of get it, because you get materials from just progressing through the story,
Right.
and then going on the occasional hunt if you want to engage in that side content. But beyond that, though, it's really just, you know,
Well,
you
and I completed the game with like thousands of crafting material, and I'm like, what do you do with any of this?
exactly. Yeah.
But it's like the armor, all it did was increase your armor, and then the weapon, all it did was increase your attack. There was no, this particular weapon, you know, causes any type of elemental status, because that's another thing they removed from all the combat. They removed all status elements or effects, except for like two enemies that cast buffs on other enemies. Okay, speaking of buffs, they removed all types of spell castings. So, there is no buffing or debuffing anything. You can cast magic, but it's just a ranged attack. It's not really like
Right.
any type of
Essentially,
magic.
what you're saying is that it's not like the RPG elements
Right.
that were prevalent
Yeah.
in Final Fantasy games are really toned down to the point where they're like non-existent. And
Yeah.
a game like Strangers of Paradise actually has more RPG elements than Final
Well,
Fantasy
okay.
16.
Yeah. So, a lot of people say, Final Fantasy 16 is not really a Final Fantasy. I disagree with the statement solely for the fact that it's a good game, right? I do believe the story is strong enough. I do feel like the combat and the game itself is polished well enough to like. I'm just glad it has the Final Fantasy name to it. Um, now
Well,
with the
man,
fact of like
Haven.
now going to a website like IGN or Kotaku, and you see all these game. I think it was IGN where I saw that they were comparing God of War and Final Fantasy 16, and they were saying, God of War is more RPG esque than Final Fantasy 16. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. Just the fact that they are comparing the two doesn't bode well for Final Fantasy, right? Just the fact that they're being compared to non RPG RPGs,
I mean, but almost
as
every
that.
action game today has RPG elements to them. Right? We just call them action adventure tiles, but the moment you start unlocking skill trees, that is really role-playing game elements because you're able to allot skill points to increase that skill or really acquire that skill. So
Yeah.
I think that it's an RPG light in that regard. Like, I do agree with you. I think the equipment stuff is something I'm like, okay, it's just kind of like there to be there. You do get a nice little visual flair with like Clive swords and stuff like that. In terms of the combat, dude, I love the combat because I'm a huge fan of Devil May Cry Platinum games. So that's
You
why I'm
would.
like, yeah, that's why I'm not like too bothered by it. I like the fact that I'm still able to switch between certain icons, and then certain abilities with those icons to kind of help optimize combat in that regard. I understand like why you'd be frustrated with it because the removal of a turn-based or an active turn-based battle system, is something that a lot of people just aren't used to. But you know, with the equipment stuff, I 1000% agree. Crafting, I'm like, there's no point, right?
Now the
Are we just
new
there to
game,
make Blackthorns
yeah, right.
unhappy?
With the new game plus stuff, they do dig a little bit deeper into crafting, and I say a little bit deeper just because instead of plus oneing the weapons, you get to like plus three the weapons or plus four the weapons. So it's like nothing too crazy, but I would have liked to see some type of, even if it's like a Final Fantasy X type of crafting where you just got to attach things to weapons, right? So each weapon had a certain amount of slots, and you could use all your crafting material to assign different attribute bonuses to it.
Right.
Now, granted, with this game, there was no attributes to increase other than attack or defense. So it doesn't, once again, it's streamlined, and I'm okay with like simplicity, like just it being easy to pick up and play, and I feel like with 15 kind of rocking the boat like it did, a lot of people complained the story wasn't good enough. A
Right.
lot of people complained about the battle system. I think Final Fantasy, or the developers were just like, all right, we're going to 100% go into the story, 100% go into combat, and that's what they did. They made way over the top cinematics, and they made way over the top combat. So on one hand, I very well made. I enjoyed it. On the other hand, is like they definitely could have expounded on like
There,
almost every aspect of
there's
the game.
there's the RPG fan in you that's been used to this. No, I completely understand. Like that's why like I'm not fighting the fact that like I think it's a vastly different Final Fantasy game. I feel like it's more akin to Crisis Core than I do like any other title. Primarily because like Crisis Core, even then was like it's as bare bones as RPG as you can be, right? Because it obviously it was a portable title, so you were taking in certain considerations. But I feel like streamlining this was really to make it more accessible to a wider audience. And the whole argument of whether or not it's a Final Fantasy game is fucking stupid, and that's just my opinion on it. But what else you got? Give me. I think we're at
Okay,
three.
so okay. So they removed MP. They removed
Right.
the elemental typings. They removed pretty much all spellcasting. They removed all the equipment having like cool things about them. They removed all status ailments.
Yep.
The other two for combat purposes was the other one was you don't get to experiment with any classes whatsoever. Like you get a sword, and he has a cool like small core class abilities like the dodge and the dash and
Yeah,
the
the
like
stinger
air
ability.
slam.
That type
Yeah,
of stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So they had that, but everything else was reliant on the icons. There was no. I'm not saying it had to go into the Strangers of Paradise, 24 classes, but it would have been cool if like he would have got a shield, or maybe he was able to pick up like Dion's lance at some point, or like
So
have a little.
well, I think like usually in action games you do have the ability to switch weapons, right? Obviously people have compared to like God of War, but I think like the way you offset that is by having those icon abilities and having, the thing is like you have just enough, like really just 4 icon abilities per, right? You have just enough to kind of like switch in between, customize and optimize the way you want in terms of combat.
Right.
It just depends on who you want to main based off damage output, that type of stuff. No, I totally get that, but
And then the other portion is the fact that there is no party concept whatsoever, right? You do have Torgal. Torgal's fantastic. I love
Torgal
Torgal.
is the party, bro.
Like he is, but even like having these immortal godlike support characters in the background that I don't know what any of their abilities actually do. You can't equip them. You can't tell them what to do. There is no. I think it would have been okay with just like a somewhat of a gambit system, right? Where you just kind of
Yeah.
set some scenarios with their AI, right? Or you could give
I
them,
mean,
some.
I think because but here's the thing with the emphasis on action, because you have to really focus on Clive the entire time. I think it would have been too much of a hassle for a lot of players to have focused on the health or whatever type of like sustainability for other characters. Because like in this game, like enemies are rushing you, and they do try to, and like the lock-on system is just okay in this game, but like the multi-directional combat is a thing. So like you're constantly switching between fights, and sometimes like without like any type of active time battle or any ability to slow it down, focusing on other party members, like just removing that burden to me is I'm completely okay with that. Like I didn't want to have to like micromanage my party. That's now I understand like why you're saying
Right.
that, but I'm just saying like I can see
So
why they took it away.
so I will say with 15, it was an absolute nightmare trying to keep my party members alive because
Yeah.
there were just some battles they were fighting.
Prompto would just die.
Well, so fighting like curls in
Yeah.
15, they had that like auto counter attack move,
Yep.
lightning move that would just instant kill anybody. And for some reason they would just god awful be like wait until that move was starting and then they would hit them and then my entire party would just wipe.
Yeah.
So I understand. I just the fact that it's completely absent, like the fact that there is nothing like there like the 7 remake. I really felt like that was a really cool party mechanic, right?
But once again, you still have the ability to slow down time,
Right.
right? You have the active time battle system.
Yeah.
You don't have that here because
Right.
even in 7, like you're not necessarily like you have most of your enemies are in front of you. Like you're not really being ganked upon. I mean, at one point in 16, I think you can fight like up to like 20 enemies on screen or something ridiculous like near the end.
Then you just use ignition and then you're fighting 3.
Exactly, because that move is awesome. But yeah, no, I understand that. But like, I think that there's probably like a thought process in like let's make this a full on action game. Let's be
Right,
let's have
right.
Clive be like the primary focus, and let's kind of have like guest characters, right? Like you saw in other Final Fantasy games, they've always thrown in guests. I think in 15, it was the Dragoon, right? I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like a guest character. You see that happen all the time, and I think here that's what they tried to apply.
Well, right, and that's fine, but everyone's a guest character.
Yeah, I mean, except for
and
Torgal, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. So, and then once again, even he's like the most passive party member ever. He just passively levels up throughout like as the story
He
progresses.
also like absolutely nukes like enemies around you. Like I did not notice that. I was like, focusing on like let's say like the orc tribe leader, and I did not know that he was just randomly killing every enemy behind me. I was like, oh shit, he's just absolutely going off. So
I will say the AI is,
competent.
I'm not gonna say it's competent because all they have to do is attack because they don't
Yeah.
have to like there is no decision making. It's just attack enemy.
But at
right?
least they're
That's-
attacking, right?
Yeah,
That's-
that is fair. I will say Torgal is a pretty cool companion. There is some cool synergy that you can do with him with the combos, and that pretty much ends my what they've removed from combat. Now I have another list of what they added to combat. All right,
I think that wouldn't that be positive? We're still talking about gripes here.
oh
Let's-
yeah,
let's-
oh yeah. Okay,
I got a couple. So like my first gripe is Annabella's fate. Like I'm gonna be fucking real about it. I was a bit disappointed that after all of this shit they put her through, that this pure blood stuff where she really didn't really care about Joshua,
Yeah.
where she didn't care about Clive, that she ends up stabbing herself in the neck. I was like, dude, really? Like let me get it. Let me get a swing in. Right? Let me get a chop in after what she did. That evil person. Because it wasn't about love of her child. It was about keeping the bloodline pure. I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now, man? You're an absolute monster.
Yeah, well, I mean, they set her up to be like the worst person on the planet. Like, she was literally
I
just,
don't think at any point in time I have not seen a post where everyone was like, oh, well, she's kind of a sympathetic character. I was like, no, she's like irredeemable.
she, I mean, that is literally
That is essentially who she is. She's an absolute fucking monster. Now I'm gonna bleep that out, by the way, so people can guess like who you're talking about.
that's fine. But so that was, yeah. So after that whole Bahamut like arc, like as soon as you get in the city and then you fight Bahamut and then like everything, and then they finally there were so many parts to that sequence, like the whole town's getting obliterated and you watch Dion kill his dad and then Joshua and
which was
Clive.
brutal, by the way. Like he straight up like he threw that spear is not not a pain, that's a painful looking spear, bro. Like he just ripped him. I was like, oh god.
But then Clive and Joshua finally, come together and then they fight Bahamut in space and then all of that happens and then Annabelle just kills herself. And I'm like, what? Like seriously? Like after all that, she doesn't get like obliterate, like I would have been even better if like
Oh man, like just
if like
Bahamut misses and just hits her. Oh dude, I would have loved that so bad.
I think it would have
Just a
I would
random flare just hits her in the fucking chest. I would love
just
that
boom.
so much.
And then like her head rolls or like
Oh,
they should have done like a callback to
the dad
oh, yeah,
getting
the dead, yeah.
decapitated. Holy shit.
Um no, like even Goot's coming in and like kicking the door open and the door flattener or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something more than her ending her own fate. I just
Yeah,
thought was kind of
her going
lame.
out pretty much like I was like, come on, man, we could have like tortured this character. My other gripe is the pacing. So for the most part, I really enjoyed like Final Fantasy 16, but there was like a part just after Bahamut where like you start to get mid, like you know when you pick up mid, and it's like
Yeah.
they introduce like some of these weird quests where it's like you're just kind of like doing fetch quests, and I was like, okay, I understand. Like I guess we're just trying to like to elongate that, and I've seen a lot of RPGs do this, by the way. It's not just 16, but I thought like when they started to kind of kill its own pace, because you go from like epic fight, epic fight, epic fight. We
Right.
know we're fighting Odin next, but before we fight Odin, let's get this ship up, and
We gotta build a
yeah,
ship.
let's take about 4 hours to do this. And I was like, holy shit, this was way too long. And then you and I talked about this yesterday or a couple days ago. The Odin thing with Barnabas. Like they made this dude. First off, I think Barnabas is a badass. Like you can tell. Like dude's just the warrior king, right?
I
Dude's been at war for 40 plus years, right? That's how he took over the Ash. You're like, holy shit. When Vivian said that, I was like, this dude's been around for that long. And
yeah.
that's all he's been doing. And then they made him kind of like this. I'm not saying a joke character, but for him to have like that maniacal, awkward laugh, to him be like a just a simp for Ultima, for that have
Right.
that mommy issue. I was like,
It
dude, no way, man.
yeah, it was I thought and once again it was kind of the pacing. I really felt after I kind of deemed the end of the Bahamut arc kind of the midway point of the game, right?
Just
I
about,
feel
yeah.
like that's but the first half, second half. I really felt like everything scaled exponentially the first half, right? You went from Garuda to Hugo to Titan to Bahamut. And then you went from Bahamut to like Flatline Plateau and then Odin, which I thought was kind of a dip for me personally. The sea scene was really cool, but like other than
That was absolutely amazing. When he cut the scene out, I was like, yo, this dude's a psycho.
yeah.
I was like,
Um,
what are we gonna do against this dude? The
but
answer is nothing.
like I so he is the Dark Knight of
Yeah,
that world, right? So like he is like the official badass Dark
the
Knight.
armor is amazing, you know?
And it he just seemed such like an emo just like I'm here to be sad and love my god. It was super
Why does mommy not miss me? I was like, bro, shut the fuck up right now.
it was just such a
that
like
scene
I
that
don't
scene
know.
was so awkward because it went from like Benedicta, I was like, hey, then went to Hugo. I was like, whatever. He's into multiple things, and then it's like mommy. I was like, mommy, bro, like what the fuck? That is not. That's just the way to like. And I understand it's like it's Ultima's grip on him, right? Because he's
Right.
ultimately that servant. But I'm like, dude, Odin in Final Fantasy is one of the most badass characters. When that dude walks out with his sword on that horse, you are fucking terrified because he's one. And like you and I differed on this, but I didn't mind the fight as much. I liked it because like Clive is a good swordsman. Let's be fair, but Odin, this dude's a war god. So when he fucking struck him down with that one move, I was like, yeah, that's. I'd like wrap it up, Clive. Go home, dude. You got fucking worked. That was brutal. Because I didn't know that was a part of the thing. By the way, like I was like fighting him. I was like, why am I not breaking down his
Yeah.
posture as he's summoning? I was like, am I gonna get killed here? And he did. I was like, oh shit, dude. Clive like and he hits him one time. Clive just like explodes in blood, which was unexpected. I was like, oh damn, he did not tank that one.
Well, so that was kind of the final fight with Odin. I was okay with. It
Yeah.
was the fact that like 12 minutes ago he fought Odin back to back and got his ass kicked. Like he literally severed every tendon in his body.
Yeah,
Like he with
that
like one stroke
yeah, that was
removed.
amazing. And
It
then
was just
yeah,
it
and
was
then
just weird. Like he went into like his backyard and then just
proceeds
owned
to beat
him.
him. You know,
Yeah.
but and
And really
like I told you, like that fight to me, like on especially when you got on top, I love that because when he started getting desperate and he started throwing around like all these crazy techniques. I was like, oh shit, I'm getting flashbacks to like some great fights from Devil May Cry. I was like, this dude is not fucking playing. I love it. Like I think it's the second phase of the fight where he does like that wave slash, and I did not expect that. I was like, what is he doing? And I was like, oh, he's gonna kill me. I had to like dash behind him to do damage, and then he combo like when he does it in the third phase, the final phase, he does like the wave dash, and then he immediately stops and like throws out this other technique. I'm like, bro, can you relax for 10 seconds? Can I get a breather? God, I chill. But overall, like I felt like they could have done Odin better. You're right. He's the Dark Knight of Final Fantasy. Like he absolutely also looked like Cecil's character from Final Fantasy. Was it 4? Right? Like the way his design was.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
like, dude, this guy looks so cool. And I was hoping like, oh, we're gonna get into the the Icon fight because he's got a big old horse. I'm super strong and weird looking. Like I should be able to body it. But ultimately that was like my two big gripes were like, or three big, but like the Annabella thing, get that shit out of here. The other thing is, and if we were to assign grades to it, my other gripe is like the side quest. Now you and I have talked about this. My opinion on it is this: we know that creative business unit 3, right? They are the minds behind Final Fantasy 14. You can fucking tell that Final Fantasy 16 is just Final Fantasy 14 extended. You know what I mean? Like you can because Final Fantasy 14 is a very dark game, you know, and 16 like really has that tone to it, that I really love. But you can also tell the side quests were the same way, because in 14 when you're committing to these smaller side quests, sometimes you're going to get like these really important plot points, but you have to do something very mundane. 16 does the same thing, even though I do think there are some really fun ones, and I like the fact that you do get background on a lot of characters. Like I love the background on Otto.
Mm.
I love the background on like when you do stuff for like Vivian, all that shit. That is really cool. Karen, Blackthorn, of course, the most emo, the most emo character in the entire. Like, who would have thought the most badass looking dude with that dope scar in his face would have been like the most insecure person?
I
Also,
saw a ring and now I can't make armor.
I cannot make that. How do you get that sword that sharp? I don't understand. It's like, bro, can you just accept the fact that you're a badass in your own right? My goodness, dude. But yeah, I like if I had to assign a grade to that, it would probably like a B minus, because like some of them just don't feel impactful enough. Like I can't keep
Right.
doing the same mundane thing. You know what I mean? But like some of
Uh,
them were like really really good. Like that one where you when you first go out, I can't remember her name, but you're going out and then you meet that little shit and his snobby ass dad, and
yeah.
he's like, oh, my son needs to be saved by these by that wolf, and then you find that he's been feeding him, and then you find another character who's like, yeah, I was sent over to help you. And then he pretty much, I think he's the one who sent the wolf, honestly, to get him killed. I was like, I did not expect that. That was dark as shit.
Yeah.
And then the other one with the little girl was looking
Right.
for um
Her plaything.
yeah, her plaything, the curse bearer, and was just renaming it constantly. I was like, if I was Clive in that moment, I'm decapitating that girl. I'm not even fucking hesitating, bro. Like the moment I see her do
She,
that, I go red. Like my sword is
I will say he ripped into her though. He was
oh
like, that is a human, and if you do this again, I will kick you in your chest. I
yeah.
don't care if you're 3 foot tall.
I would have straight up curb stopped her, bro. I'm not even playing. I would have hung her. I would have like lifted her up and just started going to town. Absolutely not. But yeah, I think the side quest for me would probably that's like my
Um,
my major gripes with it.
I would give it a beat. The fact that it's not like a huge open world, and there was a lot of fast travel points, and the chocobo travel was decent. There wasn't a lot of just straight up like travel time really anywhere. I didn't feel like any of the side quests were too inconvenient. Now some of them were just kind of boring as far as like I I did skip a little bit of dialogue, right? If someone was talking a little too much,
Tap tap
I
tap
kind
tap
of
tap
skip.
tap tap.
Yeah, there was some of that. So I actually have a list of I made a list for combat, but also made a list for story elements too. And this was actually in part of it. I liked the side quest because a lot of the back ended side quests were very character heavy, right? It explained a
Very
lot of the
very well
characters.
done.
Now, the fact that the final dungeon, when you get to the capital of Waloed, that final dungeon where you run through the city and then you get teleported and you fight Ultima, and he like spits you out or whatever. The fact that you don't know that's the final dungeon until uh, Origin pops up, and then like that's like the final fight. Um, the fact that there's like 15 side quests that pop up in between the final dungeon and the final fight,
Yeah, there's a
like
lot.
like
Dude.
it was so jarring because it was like I thought I was about to beat the game, and then they're like, oh no, um, this whole other thing happened, and you need to go back to the hideout. So you go back to the hideout, and they're like, everyone's like, hey, let me tell you my story. So then like there's this like lull of like 4 hours of like 15 side quests where you learn everyone's like sad.
Remember when we talked 10 minutes ago? You fuck.
And then I thought I was going to beat the game by going to Origin and having another dungeon, but like literally when you fast travel into a cutscene into the final fight.
Which
I
is
thought that was super weird. I thought it was a bit jarring.
yeah, dude. And by the way, I fucking loved that cutscene. I just want to point that out. All right, let's kind of reel it back before we start getting to it. Let's talk about the things we loved. I'm gonna go first. I love the characters in this game. I really do. I think Clive might be my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist. There's a debate about how powerful he was. I think he's second to Lightning in terms of power because Lightning is a god at the end of 13-2. And Clive has the power of every fucking icon. So I was like, this dude's a monster. First off, he's built like a truck. Like this is like probably the strongest looking Final Fantasy protagonist.
Yeah, well, he's also like most protagonists are like under 20 or
Yeah,
around 20,
he's
and
30, which is great. You know, I thought Jill was great. There were some people hating on Jill, but I was like, why? Like
yeah.
Jill's a great character, right? She's obviously very traumatized from how her father used to treat her, which is fucking terrible. But don't worry, like, she got the get back when she stabbed old boy in the chest. I was like,
Well,
yeah,
and then she was a slave for like 13 years.
yeah. I
So I
was
mean,
like, man, like every character. I love Joshua. Right, I didn't like. I'll be honest, like I didn't really see that twist coming. I knew like the whole Phoenix thing with Rebirth. I thought like maybe Clive just has the Phoenix in him with a free. So when
right.
Joshua came back, I was all right, cool. You know, Joshua's doing his own thing, and you know, I think he's once again a great character because he always keeps Clive in check. You know, he knows that he's dying. He did the whole Ultima thing, which I thought was like, dude, you're ballsy, bro. Like you're literally
Yeah.
gonna. I was like, what are you doing? By the way, fucking brutal when Ultimo rips that out of his chest. I was like, dude, or I was like,
Yeah,
hold
that
on.
was
Oh man.
that was rough.
He's like,
Um,
now we're back together. I was like, what is Ultima? I was like, oh, I thought Ultima's right there though. So who's that in his chest? Rip. And I was like, oh no. I was like, hey man, Flex Lane ain't fixing that one.
right.
Too.
So when you first see Joshua as an adult, I actually thought there was going to be like a timeline element, right? I thought it was going to be like
So glad there's
there,
not.
yeah, there was a thing where Joshua actually didn't die in like another dimension or something.
Oh, I'm so
And
glad they
then
didn't go there.
yeah, and it was I actually really liked how they kept it like till like the last quarter of the game. You really don't know anything, right? Then
Yeah.
he was like, I actually was saved by the undying whatever.
That was pretty
Order or
cool too.
whatever.
Like how
Yeah.
they constantly always served. Dude, I thought every character was great. I loved Otto. I loved obviously Sid. I even liked like characters like Benedicta. I love like when like I think Hugo was probably the most one note. You know, I think it really didn't feel like Hugo had like any redeeming qualities to him.
No, well, I think he served his purpose very well. I think he was very solid in like
Getting his
the
hands
part.
chopped off.
Yeah, so and I think that contrast. So the fact that like he is like a 7 foot tall behemoth of a man, and he becomes the biggest icon. Well, maybe. I mean,
No, he has
he
to be right. He's
yeah.
like
I
the
was gonna say
size of
I
a
was gonna say
mountain.
I know Odin's really big, so I'm assuming they're comparable. But I mean, he is literally a mountain. So
Yeah.
like the fact that he's just like a big man and like he's like, I'm not gonna take any shit from anyone, and he's just like completely fueled with rage. And I will say the rage thing is just like he's just like blindly in love with this woman that
Who
basically
clearly
just
had
used.
like multiple people, multiple partners,
Yeah.
Barnabas,
Um,
Sid, you
yeah.
know.
So there was the fact that he gets his hands chopped off, and then he's just like completely lost as a person. He just looks like he's absolutely defeated Like I
It's
have
probably,
no
I mean,
hands, I have no purpose.
it's probably the first time he got humbled, right? I assume, or maybe Sid humbled him too back in the day. We don't know, but um, yeah, like I think like Barnabas is probably like the mix. I even liked Ultima, like just kind of being that alien being who just really desperately just was like, look, man, I just humanity, we created y'all, like,
Right.
so y'all want to come back? Like, let's get things back rolling. Come on
I
over,
um I
dude. His
liked Onma.
his design is creepy. His fucking
Yeah.
eyes. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
that's so terrifying. I was like, oh my god. I didn't notice how small they were. By the way, at first I was like, maybe
Yeah.
I was like, is that? I was like, what is that? Like a fisheye? Like what the fuck?
It's like he has like crow's eye, but it's like 360 degree. It's
Yeah.
like super
Oh,
weird.
dude, super fucking weird.
Um,
Um,
I um, speaking of Ultima, I didn't really care for like when he turned into his like icon state. He was just a big blue Ifrit.
Ifrit. Yeah.
Like I understand it because Ifrit's the like the
It gave us a
but
reason to at least it gave the justification as to why Ifrit was so important to the story. Which, by the way,
right.
I appreciate because all the Final Fantasy fans out there, Ifrit is usually like the first summon you get, and then afterwards he can fuck right off. That's essentially what it is. And now Ifrit's like the most powerful icon. I really like the fact that Final Fantasy did that. My favorite character though was Lord Byron. I love him so much, dude. Lord Byron was so he's so fun. And on top of that, he's a badass, dude.
Oh yeah.
Byron can fight. I didn't think he could because like when he when you're was it Dalamil with Clive, and Clive makes him jump over and you just destroy people, and he's like hanging out. If you actually go into photo mode, he's actually eating like behind the bar, which is hilarious. But then you watch him fight against like the what do they call it, the Akashic?
Yeah, the Akashic, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, man! Like Byron's a badass. Like
He's
I love his design, by the way.
yeah.
Dude, his costume is so sick. I love that so much.
So well, one complaint of mine is I do feel like 16 as a whole was kind of monotone and like the seriousness of it. There really wasn't any like moments of goofiness. And that scene where they did the theater when he was trying to convince him that he was Clive, I almost teared up. Like it was nice. I really enjoyed that.
I mean, almost any like point where Lord Byron was in it, like it was funny. Like he was just humorous about the shit he said, And I was like, thank God they have like the comic relief who happens to also be an absolute fucking monster in combat, which is pretty cool. But yeah, the characters to me, I liked almost every one of them.
I really wish they would have done more with Dion.
Yeah. Oh, dude. I didn't mean not to bring him up, but I was like, dude, I'm very upset with the way he went out. I'm very pissed at that. I was like, no. I was like, Dion was like first. I think he might be like the first openly gay character in Final Fantasy. And it's crazy because I don't think you've seen it, right? Am I wrong? I might be wrong, but like I'm because a lot of Final Fantasy
maybe
games,
like a main character,
character, but like I love Dion. Like Dion was like that fallen dragoon, always high sense of honor, straight up badass. Like even he dude, the dude got absolutely destroyed, like completely just brutalized, and then goes, yeah, I'm gonna go back in. I'll back you up again. Oh my god, your screen is so bright.
My bad. I went to a website. It was not white like the rest of yeah. So with Dion, the first thing with Dion is he actually spent more time with Annabella than Clive did, right? So it's like I really felt like there would have been a lot more animosity, but obviously there like by the time she dies, there like a lot has transpired, but I really felt like the meetings between them were like the first time they were meeting each other, even though she had been there for like 13 years at that point.
Well, I think he'd been on the front line the entire time, right?
And that is understandable. He is the leader of the Dragoons, so there's a very good. But I'm like, in 13 years, you mean to tell me they've not had like any type of interaction with each other?
Dude, would you want to interact with her? Let's be honest. No, the answer is
yeah. I could fix her. So
oh, God, no, you couldn't. No, you could fix her. Decapitate her. That's cut her off at the neck.
Well, because there were so many things that went on with Dion that I just felt like were not really fully, one he kills his dad and then he just runs away, right?
Yep.
that was never really resolved. Which I'm assuming the Empire just kind of crumbles at some point because there is no one to lead it. But he kills his dad.
Destroys his empire, by the way.
Yeah.
Like as Bahamut.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, the but then they keep bringing up the medicine girl, and I understand that she had a part in like helping,
I really
like,
wish they
heal
would,
him.
give like a little bit more information on her.
But
you know?
yeah, okay, and then his gay best friend or his lover.
Yeah, his
say
lover.
that his lover. So his lover, he goes and he's like, "Hey, go find this girl." What happened with that? I'm assuming they just died because when he brought Origin, it like destroyed that whole area. So I'm assuming they died in that.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of
episode.
weird too, because I'm like, I was like, you just send off Terrence, right? That's been your boy for God knows how long.
Right.
It's been, I'm like your confidant. Like, and he was like, I'm not like, why would I leave your side? I'm like, that's a good point. You could have sent off anybody else, anyone else of your dragoons, man, to like,
Right.
keep that dude safe, right? Like, he's like, I always pay back my debts. I'm like, I guess, but I hated the way he died.
Yeah.
I really did. I thought I knew that it, like when they went to like Ifrit, Phoenix, Bahamut, I was like, if Bahamut has to make the sacrifice play, it would make the most sense because he is technically the most powerful. There's a bond between brothers. And like I do like the fact that as they were doing the anime beam struggle, as they were having the Kamehameha waves at each other, he was smart enough to know that he wasn't going to win, so he threw out more flares to hit him. And I love the fact that Ultima was like, oh, what an inconvenient play. But it all felt like it was for naught, because I guess it gave Clive and Joshua like a little bit more time, But did it really matter? Because Ultima was going to end up in the same place no matter what.
Right.
And I really feel like if they do DLC, character DLC, like give me some Dion stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is so much that I just felt like they were just like. For one, I actually really liked his white robe with like the chainmail over it. He looked
great.
It was snazzy.
Very cool.
I just felt like, I mean, he had his moments. Like there were several moments that he had in the game, but once again, 90% of it was Clive. So it's just like, man, that was one character I just wish I could have seen a lot more of. And then I actually really didn't like out of all the icons, I think Bahamut was my least favorite. He looked cool. He looked anorexic. It was just like, he did not look imposing as a dragon at all.
Is it because? Well, it's funny that you say that, but like every time they showed him next to Phoenix and Ifrit, he was huge.
Oh yeah, he was definitely big.
I thought his design looked kind of weird with like the weird tendrils, I guess, spikes or whatever, like on his I guess that makes sense if you're trying to like talk about where the energy goes. But I will say
like
that
it looked like he had turbine on his wings.
Yeah.
That's what like there's.
When he goes to like Giga Bahamut mode, like, I was like, that looks cool. Like that was dope. But it was clear that he was like the most powerful icon, and I thought like he wouldn't struggle or he wouldn't die as he did. But it is what it is.
I think they were like, we need people to die. Like we need this to be as dramatic as possible. So I actually really had a problem with how Clive dies. I'm not going to talk about that just yet though.
Well, I think his fate is ambiguous, right? I think maybe Joshua finds him, has enough power to kind of like heal him or something.
Okay, so my issue is,
but can we get some happy endings for some of these fucking characters?
Exactly. So for everyone else, it was like they died like doing their duty. Clive defeats Ultima, and he's just like, I'm kamikaze-ing the shit out of this place, and he just blows up and I'm like, why not just like, I don't know, do what everyone else or like all the other crystals you've done and just destroy the heart and get out of there? Like, why do you have to like sacrifice yourself after you beat the bad guy?
Yeah, I think it was a big bit of contention. I didn't mind the ending, honestly. I kind of liked it, but I felt because but I felt like it kind of follows suit with like some Final Fantasies where the main character either disappears or dies, right 10 with Titus.
That was that ending was stupid. They were like floating off in the clouds and like he high fives his dad.
Woo!
and Yuna's just over there crying on the airship.
It's like oh, bro, you high fiving because you're happy to get away from her? Like, what the fuck, my guy? And then Lightning, she disappears, right, in 13. And obviously they cleared it up in sequels and stuff like that. But dude, it's like, dude, you waited for Jill and Clive to have like a romantic moment. They finally had that shit on the beach. It was like the will they won't they, right? Which is what I liked. I'm like, okay, cool. You guys are fucking 30. Like let's just like let's act like adults here, all right, and let's just get it on.
That was such a abrupt moment as well when they got washed up on the beach and they're just naked talking to each other.
But I assumed that was, but I was like, you know what, that makes sense because their clothes have to be like just fucking soaked,
Oh yeah.
right? Like
Oh yeah. Obviously.
But
But it's
listen,
just
when
like,
that moment happened, I'm like, was Torgal facing the other way? Torgal, my man, are you watching this go down, my dude? You're like, you know what? Hey, you guys want me to go take a walk? I just want that, like, I'm gonna go take a walk. Like, him get up and walk off would have been funny as shit.
it would have been great. Like after they started kissing, like you see him like stand up and just like curl the other way.
Yeah.
Like just lays back down.
Also, you know, listen, I like Joe, but we couldn't get like a romantic option thing with like Tarja. Like, come on, man. Like Tarja was like Tarja or Vivian. Like Vivian was. I was like, Vivian, hello.
I was gonna say
what's going on?
pretty much all the females were pretty.
Every guy I assume was pretty much like every person in Final Fantasy. If you're a main character, you are attractive. Like, don't even, not even question. If you're male, female, whatever, you are attractive. That's just what it is. I always thought that shit was funny. I was like, oh my god. I like the plot too, the whole thing. It was funny. I was on Twitter and social media, and I saw someone like, oh, they talked about the mother crystals and how they were bad, and then they just ignored it. I was like, no, they didn't. The entire fucking game talks about like the effect of the mother crystals and magic on the planet. Like essentially, it's like an old throwback to like the original Final Fantasies because they're trying to like bring balance back to the world. Right. It's just in a much darker tone, and obviously we find out at the end that Joshua wrote Final Fantasy, so technically he's the cause for all the fucking problems people have with a lot of endings. Listen, Joshua saw 10 and was like, I'm gonna make fucking people hate this ending because it, like 13 Tech 2. Let's lightning returns, baby.
Actually, yeah, I really love the story. The lore, the active time lore thing was like a godsend, and I really hope
that is essentially, and no shit. I'm glad you brought that up because that's like that. Like if I had a plus board, like the active time lore is a requirement because RPGs are expansive. There are far too many fucking characters sometimes, and there's all these different conflicts. And the fact that you have both Vivian and active time lore together,
right,
makes it like if you're a lore nerd, you have to be either be excited, but if you make the videos, you're just like, nah, I'm just copying it. I can't read between the lines or some shit. How's my video gonna work out? But like every time, I really got excited when Vivian would like talk to you, and then she would go deep into like the details of a character. I'm like, yes, that is awesome, because she like just brought up all the crazy shit about how long these like countries have been in conflict and stuff.
I actually really liked when she would go into her lecture and it would like do the map overlay.
The map, oh dude, it's so good.
The music, I'm pretty sure it wasn't the same music, but it always reminded me of when they were doing the mission planning in Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh yeah.
And they would do like the map, and it would like show like what the mission would entail. It had the same vibe, and I loved that sequence.
Speaking of music, Brad, the music in this game, tremendous. Like it had a number of remixed pieces too, but like holy shit! Like when you get into like an epic fight, the music in the background, or you get into like a really like intimate scene, and they have like that really soft. I was like, dude, this is so well done.
The music was fantastic. I feel like with some of the fights, there was a bit of a mixed match, like emotion wise. It was just like sometimes it was like just like happy upbeat music, and you're like fighting for your life, and it's like this doesn't seem. But I mean, the music's still good. It just felt kind of.
Are you saying you don't like Clive's one-liner at the end?
Oh, dude, that was I was like oh that was bad, but it was so great. Like it was so well delivered at such the perfect time.
I was like, there's no way he said that. After he threw the sword through his chest, which was just an amazing fucking moment.
Ultima was like, your world is just a fantasy, and Clive's like, your world's a fantasy, and we're the final witness. And just like tears a hole through his chest.
What I would have loved even more is if Clive throws a sword and it impales Ultima and sticks him to a pillar or something like that, and then he turns as he's going back to Josh with like, stick around, and it's fucking. Picks up Joshua as he's dead on the floor. Oh man. I love some of the monster designs. I love like the like. I was gonna bring up combat because I love the combat, but let's talk about the icon fights. I look. It is very rare that a game has, in my opinion, this many high quality fights, like ever. Like I was like, okay, Garuda, that fight was awesome, right? Just the way like Clive's talking shit while she's talking shit. They meet in the middle, and then he proceeds to just eviscerate her. I'm like, oh my, dude, fucking chill. Yeah. And then you push that out. You're like, okay, cool. Let's bring in Hugo. Hugo, come here. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. What the fuck? You beat the Mega Titan form, and then he's still fighting you as you're going through his body. That is insane, right? And he was cut in half, right? I have to look at the footage.
Yeah.
I think he was cut in half because I'm going to put the footage behind us. But you have that, and then you go from that to Bahamut, which when you told me, like, just wait, I was like, all right, we'll see.
Yeah, you were like, I really like how the battles scale so far, and I was like, and this you had just fought Titan, and I was like, just wait, it gets even better. He's like, there's no way.
I got so fucking distracted in the Bahamut fight because of just how cool everything was. Like the moment Joshua and Clive like combined to become Super Ifrit Phoenix or whatever the hell it was, they have like the
Ultra Instinct.
Yeah, they go in the Ultra Instinct Ifrit. And then Bahamut's like out there in space. I'm like, dude, what is happening? Why is this happening right now? This is fucking epic. And just like dodging all of the crazy beam struggles, right? Like, and even like one of my favorite fights, and I don't know if people are gonna bring it up, was the Behemoth fight. Dude, I fucking love that fight so much. Because the moment you get Behemoth to pretty much death, he's like, annihilation. I'm not gonna lie, that killed me at first because I had no idea what was happening. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna I guess I kill him before the meteor hits.
Yeah.
And then it hit him in the fucking face. And it killed me. I was like, wait, oh, okay, that's what that meant. I was like, well, we'll restart.
You're supposed to dodge, obviously.
That was hilarious, dude. But the Behemoth fight was like so epic because every time they show a Behemoth in a Final Fantasy game, right, it should be like this epic fight. I think it was epic in 15 when you're on the hunt for it. It was epic when they had the Final Fantasy Monster Hunter crossover. That fight was amazing. But I just love the fact that he started, like, explain to me, like, the comets were faster than the meteors, right? The comets did way more damage. I was like, dude, this shit is insane. Obviously, you thought the Odin fight was a little bit down, but I still thought the fight was great. I just like the fact that, like, when Odin started to, like, go berserk, when he hit the limit break, I was like, this fucking dude just went nuts. Right, and he has this little transformation where he's just swinging the sword. I was like, dude, this guy, this is so cool. Like, I just loved it.
And it may have just been the fact that it came after the Bahamut fight, and it's like I was expecting something on par with that, or something equivalent to that. And I don't think it was the spectacle that the Bahamut fight was. I'm not saying that the fight wasn't great. It was just I was expecting, not really more Odin just because of like the monstrosity that Odin is. Like, I really think he would have just annihilated if like he really went loose. And once again, I think there was some. I mean, the fact that he was constrained by Ultima, that
Clive catching his big sword was hilarious, dude. As he I was like, I was laughing so hard when he did that. He's like,
broke the sword and stabbed him with it.
Dude, I wanted that so bad. I wanted him to break the sword and fucking throw it. I was like, now I have a weapon. Like, this would have been amazing. And then you go and fight Ultima. I like the Ultima fight. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
I love how layered it was. I love that, like... And I don't know how many times Ultima has been the boss in a Final Fantasy game. The last one, for some reason, I could vividly remember is him in Tactics. Was Ultima in Tactics, because he was just a fucking bitch to fight. But in 16, like, I love that fight. I love how layered it is, how you go from, like, different areas, different planes. You go from space back down, and then you guys are just brawling.
I really like that fight. Other than the like other dimension fight, I was so like,
oh yeah,
it might have been a like depth perception thing for me, but I was super confused. Like I don't think I came close to dying, but I got hit so many times just because I wasn't understanding. Because he would do like the 10 tentacle things, and like they would like spin around, and I didn't know which way to move.
I was like, man, yeah, but like I think honestly, like 16 probably has the best boss fights in the series, like hands down. Even its worst fight with Odin is probably better than any fight in,
Oh
in
yeah.
15 or you know. I was shocked, dude. Like I think I think Creative Business or CBU3, like they've outdone themselves. Like, dude, how do you like? Because if you've ever played Endwalker or any of their DLCs, like, dude, they scale fights so fucking well. Like Endwalker's fights, dude, are just masterful and so damn good. And that you could see the vibe here, right? You have these big AOE attacks. You have these crazy follow ups, like, and they all have tells, right? But I was like, everything was like this whole thing was like a spectacle through and through, right? It just felt so cinematic, and everything was just so much fun. And even like the smaller fights with like some of the hunts, I found those super entertaining as well because they had variations of certain monsters, but like they'd always have like a unique two or three things added to their move set, which I really liked. But yeah, I don't know. I have no clue how they're gonna like top this, like ever. Like Seven Rebirth is gonna have to like dig into the well like really hard. Like how many times am I fighting Sephiroth, dude? Like, you know?
Yes. There's going at least two more. He's gonna. There's going to be an inevitable showdown to each episode, so at least two more times, if not more.
Unless you guys become best friends and then you guys fight together. But
so
give me some things you liked.
All right, so actually, I'm gonna have one more thing that I didn't care for.
You could have brought that shit up
Like
earlier.
I know, yeah. Well, we kind of jumped around my list a little bit. So like throughout the game, they're like there's 8 elements and there's a corresponding icon, and I'm like, I was like, all right, where's the 8th icon? Because no, like it was never discussed the entire game until like 3/4 of the way in, and then Josh was just like, oh, the lost icon Leviathan, and I was like, that's it. That's all we get. There is no ATL. There is no ATL about it. There is no.
It's Torgal.
Like there is no. I was expecting Torgal to be some type of icon. I honestly, that is one of my favorite moments was when he like awoke or whatever.
When
he
he saves Joe. Oh man.
Yeah, that was a super sick moment. I really enjoyed that one. But I was expecting him to be someone like super special. But I'm okay with him not being because he's Torgal, so I'm okay with that.
It's great.
But the fact that Leviathan was just like omitted, other than that like one line of dialogue.
What if Sid kills him? We could have a DLC with Sid, which Sid kills fucking Leviathan or hides Leviathan. What if Leviathan's that little girl, who just randomly shows up to heal people?
Oh, and see, like something like that, because that was just super weird that the Metascroll. Even if you talk to Vivian and you did the like spider web of characters.
I love that too, by the way.
The medicine girl is in that web. She's just there, and why? Don't know. I mean, she did play a part in like saving Dion or whatever. So I guess it's understandable that she's there. But it was just like I really felt like something like she was going to be, someone's daughter or something super important. But that's just something. I actually read something on Reddit, and some people were complaining that like the ending also didn't make sense because the fact that Leviathan wasn't there, Mythos wasn't actually like the complete vessel. So
right.
Why did Ultima try to like initiate the like detonate sequence or whatever? Because like there was a good chance that like whatever he was trying to do wouldn't work because he technically wasn't in like the fulfilled state or whatever.
Right.
But once again, I don't think it really mattered. I don't think it really cared because maybe he was just getting desperate at that point because obviously they didn't realize that humans were going to get free will and like be able to like rebel and all that good. So maybe they're just like, let's get out of here.
Dude's like, what the fuck, man? We disappear and you guys do this shit.
Let's see.
I wanted this to be a short video to edit. It's gonna be like a whole
know.
thing. You're lucky I recorded. You're lucky I recorded all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
I kind of covered most of it.
But I mean that was really I'm trying to think of the Titan fight, like when he turns into a mountain and you're like climbing his body to fight him was really cool. The Bahamut fight was probably my favorite, like maybe my favorite moment in like that whole sequence from when you go into the Capitol until right before Annabella kills herself. That's probably the coolest sequence, um, probably in Final Fantasy, maybe in any game ever. I don't know. That might be a stretch, but
I mean, it's gotta be up there, dude. Like, there's almost no way that like, I think 16 is gonna be remembered for the spectacle that it is, and I think that it's gonna become. I would say like most new people to the franchise, their favorite Final Fantasy primarily because of just how mature the game is. Like like it's very, it's so different in tone. The best way I can describe it is that if you go from like any of the Tales games, right? You look at like how most Tales games are. They're usually very lighthearted and they have like some dark overtones. But like Tales of Arise was a much darker game, right? And I feel like 16 is that much darker game, even though Tactics was a spin-off. But mainline entries, 16 was like, we're not fucking around anymore.
right.
We got Kingslayers, we got, you know, dudes getting decapitated, we got like politics of the region. But like my one gripe with people was the complaint that I kept seeing was like, oh no, it devolves into magic. I'm like, that's what Final Fantasy is though. Like, now you know why there was all this conflict was because of the magic.
Yeah.
The magic was the reason. You know?
And yeah, almost every Final Fantasy scales from a personal conflict up until like the fate of the universe. Like almost all of them happen.
Why is Cloud in fucking space right now? How come Sephiroth is a biblically accurate angel? Like, what is like what are we doing at this point?
Like, Cloud started off as a mercenary just trying to run away from Shenra, and then
now he's a god with a sword. He can summon multiple swords or something. It was crazy. But no, like I think that overall, like if we were regrading our tier, which by the way, go watch our tier list and hate us for it because I know people will. But I think that if like pacing issues aside, I actually have this as like an S tier Final Fantasy game. I just feel like everything about the game, like the gripes I had, everything about it just like supersedes it because it rarely, like, its only real misstep in my opinion, if you're an RPG fan like Brad, all right, it's not having its true JRPG stuff, but like its only real misstep is its pacing. But for the most part, it fucking nails everything it tries to do. It nails like the tone, thematic elements. You know, it's more well put together than most of the Final Fantasy games we've seen recently. Like the most modern.
Okay, recently. Okay, recently. So
like,
that's fine.
Chill. We're not talking about 9 here, bro. That's different territory. You know what I mean? Not 9 or 6. But I have it like if we were like if we were doing like A plus, like I'd probably put an A plus, but I'm always veering more toward like giving this an S because I love this game. Like I played it like almost nonstop, but I had to take a break because I was like, dude, I'm like staying up late as shit to play this, and I got work in the morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I took a few breaks at work to play, you know, to do some of the side quests. So I think I had kind of the opposite experience. Like playing through the demo and being just like blown away with like the story elements of, you know, the prologue. I'm not gonna say I was blind going through the first half of the game, you know, up until Bahamut, and then I don't know, having a lull with that pacing lull, like trying to like experiencing some of the other combat stuff and just going through hunts and doing side quests. I don't know, something kind of wore off, and it was just like, all right, I'm starting to see people's complaints. Yeah. I definitely don't agree to the extent that they, you know, have them.
Some people feel like it was just being like complaining to complain though. Like,
so I watch a lot of content from a guy called Matt Colville, and he's a writer, game developer. He used to work with Turtle Rock Studios. He did like board games, like the original Dune board game. Anyways, he's really big into D&D, and I listen to a lot of his content with like world building and like understanding like game development. So he was a video game writer. Like that's his main thing. He's written books on D&D and whatever. Anyways, he has one episode where he talks about like the funness in video games, and when he was the lead writer on Mercenaries, and he was like,
oh yeah,
when when writing the game, what we did was anything that we wrote, and we said, "Is this fun?" If it wasn't fun, we took it out. Right. The main objective of a video game is to have fun, and anything that's not fun should not be there. And I feel like Final Fantasy kind of had this concept with this game. They were like, we're going to strip away all the fat. We're going to strip away everything and just have a core experience. And that's going to last from point A to point B, or
Correct.
from start to finish. It's just going to be high octane cinematic fights from start to finish. And it's going to be a deep, dark story. So I appreciate them for doing that. Now, with them being Final Fantasy and Square Enix and them writing Grand Tales and having a lot of things in their games, I will say that I do feel like you could have used a little bit of variety, right? It's one of the few Final Fantasies that have no mini games, like to any extent.
Good.
You know,
I don't want to play card games, bro.
Right? Well, it's not even just card games, but like there's no chocobo racing. There's not a dice game. There's no jump rope.
You want
there's
dice
no.
game? You
There's
want
no.
dice games?
There's
Play
no
Dave the
squat.
Diver.
There's no there's no squat mini game, right? There's no. I mean, there's literally not a single thing.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. Like it was not. I don't think the intent was to make a more lighthearted affair, like in another, because let's be honest about it. In a lot of Final Fantasy games, when they go into the melodrama, it always offsets itself by having this weird ass section where it just feels completely out of place, you know. But in Final Fantasy 16, that rarely never happens. Like almost every moment matters in the game, you know. They're and when you go to 7, there's certain things you're just like, this doesn't feel like it would fit, but it's just like weird humor, you know.
Right.
And in 16, it's like that weird humor is gone, and there's actually in my opinion, and I want to point this out too, this probably has the best voice acting in any Final Fantasy game. Goodness gracious, dude.
Maybe some of the best voice acting in general.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Clive kills it. Like that man, give that dude every fucking award ever.
His crying at the end was kind of fun. I did laugh when Josh died, and he was like, oh. I was like, what is that? I was like, what is that? Is he like moaning in pain or something? Like, what is?
But I feel like that. I really feel like there was, you know, when they introduced Byron, it was still funny, but it was like it set the tone like of the type of character he was, because he was a pirate,
right?
You know,
and I appreciated the comic relief. I just felt like, because it was a very serious, like down to earth. I would say a low magical. That's not the right term. I was going to say low fantasy, but that's really not. That's not really.
Essentially, it was a dark fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and you know, I'm not going to use the whole Game of Thrones thing, but you know, they introduced dark fantasies, but it was a dark fantasy, and it was like a welcome change, in my opinion, because dude, you think about it. You go from Final Fantasy Crisis Core, right? You're having fun, just before Zack gets killed, he's at the beach doing squats, right?
Nice.
Just kind of having a good time, and then he dies in a horrific way by getting shot 100 times. You're like, what the fuck? Why is it so sad right now? In 16, they're like, yeah, dude, so we're going to cut off your dad's head. Just let you know that. I'm like, and then we're going to watch you beat your brother to death in icon form. It's like, and then your mom is going to make you a curse bearer and pretty much push you into slavery. It's like, what the fuck, dude? You know? And so I really feel like they were trying to make, at least chart a new Final Fantasy. And I see people's complaints about it. You can't be that 15 was dark too, but then you also went to where Luna Freya lived, and it was like you could put Noctis in these goofy ass clothes and stuff.
Yeah,
but in 16 it's dude, it's a dark fantasy. It just happens to be the way. Is 17 going to be the way? No, you know, but it's nice to see Final Fantasy kind of, you know, make that push and then be consistent with it. Because every time they do it in other games, dude, they get super dark, and then you're playing a fucking card game for 35 minutes. Or let's go play some what was it in fucking in 10? And it's
Blitzball.
Let's go play some Blitzball, bro.
Dude, I expected there to be something, whether it's
Bro,
like,
people are struggling in that
well,
world, man.
right, and I'm not saying to like go.
Hey, there are mini games, right? Right? There are mini games. You get to listen to that little girl talk about how like that that person wasn't a thing. It's like, dude, fuck that little girl. Let me get the mini game of kicking
Right?
her in the chest.
Like it could have been like a mini game of like how fast can you murder, all of the little children. No, like like it just there was like with Nine had the Chocobo Hot and Cold game where you like dug up the thing, or it's just obviously triple triad, all that stuff.
I
But it was
just
just
don't think it would have fit the tone. It's just like I don't think you could I don't think you could segue it in. You know, I think the earliest they could have done it was when they
no,
introduced Lord Byron.
no,
That's
no.
private
Okay,
time.
okay. So when you go to the when you go to the brothel, right?
Yeah,
Right? You go into the brothel not for the reason you think, but you go into the brothel and they just have like parlor games there, right?
yeah.
Now, would it really fit? Like, would Clive really be doing that? Probably not.
No,
But
because he's on a this man's on a timetable, bro.
but hey, back at the hideout, right? You speak to the Spoony Bard, right? And you speak to the Boony Spard, and you have like you have a karaoke dance off with them or something. I don't know.
This isn't Yakuza.
They did it in the 7 remake. He had a whole musical number. It was super weird, and I really didn't like it.
But that was part of 7. That was a part
It
of 7,
was. It
right?
was.
They
But it
didn't
was
have that part where like Cloud walks into that room with all the muscly men, which would have been fucking hilarious. I just think that like 16, I think the team knew they had to stick the tone because like literally it is 14. That's the way 14 is. 14, like the only reason like you have lighthearted moments is mostly because it's an MMO. But for the most part, 14 is fucking dark, man. Like main characters get killed off constantly, and I'm like, dude,
good.
16 is the same way.
Yeah, I hope going from 13 to 15 to 16,
Mm.
it's more actively away from the original formula.
Right.
And I'm okay with there being variety. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
100%.
I'm not saying every game has to be, 7 or 8, but it's like I hope they don't just go into a completely different direction and say, well, it's modern times, so it has to be it. The next installment's now a first-person VR game or whatever. So it's like we need to be as immersive as possible. Like, no, I want to party and I want to be able to cast magic because I like,
I
I like.
listen, I agree with you. I think that when they do make 17, when that comes out 10 years from now, okay, because we got the 7s to worry about and the other remakes, when that eventually arrives, I do think that a little variety would be nice, a little bit return to form in terms of like having an active time battle system, that type of stuff. Um, but I do want them to kind of maintain and be consistent with their tone. I think if you're tonally all over the place, it really doesn't send a good message when a character does die because it always feels like it's kind of cheap sometimes. You're just like, did we do that to like kind of draw out this emotion from the viewer, from the player? When you could like get attached, like when Dion got killed, I was like, what, why the? I was like, oh man, like you
He
could
just
sense
fell
it.
to his death. Like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm like, you ain't got, you got one more Bahamut turn in you, baby. Like pick yourself up, pick yourself up. No, um, but that's like that was the thing I really appreciate was that the developers like committed themselves to it. And same thing. That's why like you and I we like Stranger to Paradise for that too, was because they really stuck with that tone. Regardless of how many people like were upset with it, dude, when they got to the end of that game, like they did some shit that I was like, this is good. This is cool because Final Fantasy 16 is kind of a throwback to a lot of old games, especially like the storyline, right? You technically would have a really basic plot. Like the mother crystals are a problem, magic's a problem. Let's get a way to remove it. We just throw in these, different subplots. You know, we throw in a really layered, developed character, finally an adult, right? We have this 30-year-old who has 30-year-old problems, that type of shit. I just wanted him like to one day to be like, I can't move my eyes. I woke up, my neck hurts. My back's killing me. What the fuck?
My knee pops when I
My
stand up.
my knees hurt when it's cold. Yeah. I just think that like they did a really good job. And yeah, I mean like I seriously I look at the gripes people have and I agree with a lot of them, but I think the thing about this game is that like I can recommend it to anybody. It feels like a really accessible, 16, a really accessible Final Fantasy game. If you were turned off by like 14, like,
Yeah.
or if you were turned off by 15 and 13, 16 is a game that you can pick up, play, have a good time with. It's not as bloated as other Final Fantasy games. Like you were talking about, like, we trimmed the fat, you know, I think that here's what I think. This would be like our closing thing. When they eventually do remake Final Fantasy VI, people are going to see that 6 was as dark as 16 at times. The very first mission in 6, you are slaughtering an entire village. Like, it is, that Magic Tech armor scene is gonna look so dope whenever they make it. But I was like, dude, that's a brutal fucking scene. And then you have Kefka killing the world, like, actually being the one villain who followed through and did what he was supposed to, right? So I really feel like with 16, it's probably like kind of the barometer, for the developers to be like, look, like people really want this type of game. 6 is probably, in my opinion, like the one game you could make. And what would people complain about? Like, oh, it's just too dark. I'm like, then play the original, you'll see it. Hey, there's a lot going on here with all these characters. So yeah, I'm glad they were consistent with it. I really feel like it. I don't think it's going to be like the standard moving forward. I really think they probably looked at it like, yeah, we're a little bit too leaning into the action a little bit. We can probably update the RPG mechanics just a little bit more, right? Have you not just gain a level and get out all your attributes scale, like, actually make it matter. Introduce the dude, where's my little stabby boy, by the way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's
or
my
or the cactar.
Or the cactuar.
Or,
Like, what the hell? I'm in the
yeah,
desert. Like, what's going on?
I do feel like they didn't show Biggs or Wedge either. They may have had like some comparative characters here and there that like it could have been them, but
Yeah.
they just never showed up.
But yeah, I think 16 to me, it's visually, listen, I set a fucking bar, bro. And spectacle wise, if you're gonna bring on these big ass bad you better fucking bring it, man. These boss fights were no joke. Some of the best I've ever played. And you and I, we usually have problems with like QTs sometimes. We're like, there's too many. I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit. That was cool looking.
Yeah.
Did Bahamut just do that?
Yeah, I would probably give it an A plus.
Yeah.
And really it's the really the accessibility that probably drops it for me. It like,
oh, you're that guy. You're
yeah,
that.
I'm
He's a gatekeeper.
Like, I hate to be a purist, but it's just like I would have liked to see just some grindiness to it. It was
No,
it may have been
off,
too late. It may have been a little too
there
late.
was grindiness. It was the side quests that were grindy. You see, you're forgetting already.
Why? But once again, that's completely. I think I could have not completed a single side quest and had no issue beating the game whatsoever.
That's true.
And then I wouldn't have known about any of the characters whatsoever. But it's really, I dropped the half a point like due to personal preference. Like,
yeah, I gave
it is very
like,
it's
if we're
very
doing an
well
out
made.
of 10, I said 9.5.
Yeah,
I said that would be, the thing if we're doing our S tier scale.
9. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd give it a 9. I'd give it a 9. That's why I said like I'd lean more toward S if we had it, or if A plus, whatever. I just feel like it's nice to have like a mature Final Fantasy. It's nice to have like a mature protagonist, mature characters, that type of stuff. Like I think the only kind of goofy character was Byron in mid at times, but beyond that, like I guess Blackthorn, if you want to count his oddly fucking
Gav had some good quips.
Gav, by the way, shout out to Gav. I love that character. Yeah. Fantastic character. Dude, every time like we did something, I was like, if Gav dies here, I'm gonna be very upset. When we went to go fight Odin, bro, I was like, if Gav dies here, I'm gonna be very pissed because Gav is a cool character.
I actually did that with several characters. I was like, I bet he dies here, doesn't he? And then like it just never happened. I was like, thank God.
That's the best thing about 16 is that you kind of kept you on your toes. Like, who are they gonna kill? Like, I was like, please don't kill Byron, even though like that one scene where him and his old friend were fighting, and I was like, oh God, they're gonna get killed. Instead, you just like they were kind of badasses. I was like, all right, you know, that's good. So let's do on our closing thoughts, Brad. Let's go. Like, what do you want to see next for Final Fantasy? Real quick, don't like I'm. You got to worry about me when I end
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Um,
Any pros?
yeah, I'm trying to think. So I think they did what they did was very well. I would like to see them do it in the opposite direction, right? I would like to see them kind of pull off what they did, but in a party sense, right? So it's a group of characters. I don't, you know, they can all be orphans from the same orphanage or something. I don't know.
Was that
It can
8?
be
Weren't they all
well.
orphans
So
from 8?
well, yeah, well, they were all part of a, a
No, but
school.
yeah, but at the
I
end,
don't-
when like
Oh,
the
yeah,
term they were
yeah,
orphans.
yeah, 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 yeah. They were they were actually all
Hey,
orphans under
hey,
this.
as Dion once said, you know, fuck them kids, bro. Yeah, that's why he's our goat, because Dion, like, he's straight up trying to throw that spear, bro. I was like, get him.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to see them kind of just do that in a basically do 16, but just have more characters, more customization. You know,
So-
make it 16, but RPG.
So we're waiting for the 6th remake. Roger that. Yeah, for
Exactly.
me, I'm just, you know, looking forward to, you know, I like, I'm always excited for like a remake of like an old game, 6 tactics, that type of stuff. You know, if they do 9, you know, because I think it's been confirmed. But yeah, I wonder what 17 is gonna look like eventually down the line. I'll be fucking, you know, old as hell. But it will be nice to, you know, I wonder who's gonna handle it too. I think like because of the success of 16 so far, I think it sold like 3 million in like 3 days or some shit. Like, you know, maybe Creative Business Unit 3 gets a second chance, gets a second throw at it. You know, I don't need to be sad
Yeah.
the entire time, goddamn. But
Well,
yeah,
I was actually looking at something, and it was they were showing like it wasn't actually it's actually underselling compared to 15.
well,
15 or 14, 15 or 14.
yeah,
There's one of them.
it's
is,
on one console, so
Right, yeah,
on a
yeah,
PS5.
yeah.
So yeah, that 3 million is not nothing to scoff at. It's pretty damn good.
but once again,
Yeah,
I have complaints, but they're overwhelmingly like squashed by how much I enjoyed the time playing the game.
make sure you enjoy your games, people. I swear, like everyone who
Oh, yeah.
people are just so unhappy. That's gonna do it for this spoiler discussion. I was gonna say this episode. I was gonna do it for this spoiler discussion. This will be out. Oh, we'll put this out with Tuesday or some shit. We'll see. But yeah, we'll have this will be like our damn. It's gonna be a long ass video. My goodness. I told Brad
You're
for
welcome.
I was like 40 minutes, and he's like, nah, I got points to talk about. Fine. This will be like a video.
40 minutes about Dion. What are you talking about?
Not Dion. Gotta get them edits in. I am Ken. That is Brad. And we will talk to you next time, everyone. Take it easy.